Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the SmartBiz Advisors podcast, where we dive deep into the essentials of small business entrepreneurship. I'm John Jones, and joining me, as always, is my good friend and associate, Mr. Mark Fackrell. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, John. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Today, we're tackling a topic that many of you have been asking about, and that is how to manage needy and entitled clients effectively. All right. So this is a biggie, right? We're small business owners. We're entrepreneurs. We're trying to grow our service or the market for our goods, and naturally, we need to introduce those things to others. And so we're going to be coming into contact with all kinds of different people. Some of them will appreciate what we're doing, some of them may not, but we know that there are challenges because some of them may attempt to capture more of our attention. They demand extra attention, and maybe are expecting more than what you may offer or want to offer. And so that might test the limits of your customer service. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of break this topic down a little bit. You, Mark, you are traditionally have been service oriented, so you are doing consulting, and so you have one kind of format or relationship with a client, and I have by and large been doing goods based and selling of items, so I have a different experience. I thought this would be really neat for us to discuss what are the key strategies, what advices do we have, how can we manage needy and entitled clients? What do you think, Mark? Where should we get started?
Thanks for that, John. So I think maybe a good place to start on this conversation, and we'll just be real brief on this, but maybe talk about what a good client is.
Okay.
So a good client is one that recognizes the value in the goods or the services that you provide.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that you are selling them something, whether it be consulting services or a product, and they're going to pay you for it, and you're going to have a good transaction. So a good client is one that makes you money. It's one that doesn't require you to have to spend a bunch of additional time servicing the needs of that client beyond what you're getting paid for. Assuming you're providing a good service and you're giving them value, they should be happy with that, and they should respect your time. If you're selling a product, like you said, if you're selling them a product and it's a good product and it works, then they should respect that, right? And not have to come back with a bunch of problems. It's interesting. You and I started our relationship. You were my client, right? So you're a good example of an excellent client that we had. So we made money from you guys over the years, and you respected our time, and I believe that we provided a good quality service for you. And so, we've continued our relationship on for, going on 10 years now. And I think that's a testament to the fact that we met your needs and you met our needs. And so we established a long-term good working relationship. And so that's the basis of what you want in a good client. Yeah.
I doubt there is much discussion about, what qualifies as a good client. We all have our ideal client, and that would be a person who appreciates us and who purchases our good or service, and then doesn't always require our attention or need our follow-up support. Yeah, but obviously, we're not always going to get that, right? So let's discuss some of the techniques or the uh, skills maybe, or some of the issues that we might encounter with dealing with trouble clients, needy clients, entitled clients? What are some of the things? Let's hit some of the top things. What can we do to either allay them or solve them, to fix the problem? What do you think is something that we can do to make sure that a client understands clear boundaries?
So boundaries. I mean, you just said the very first thing. I think that it's boundaries and it's about communication. And this starts right at the very beginning of the relationship. Clear communications between you and your client is critical to this. So I want to clearly communicate to them what it is that I'm going to be providing them. And I'm going to clearly expect them to communicate to me what their needs are. So one way to do that is a written agreement. If you have a contract, with somebody, you want to clearly specify what it is that you're going to be doing. You want to clearly specify, what you're going to be getting paid for it. You're going to clearly specify if it's a service type agreement. This agreement is based on me providing 10 hours worth of work for you every month. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, it's a situation we all want to be flexible with our clients, and we don't ever want to do anything to upset them.
Right. Right.
And so, if it's taking 11 hours a month to perform the services for them that you're offering, then, that's not going to be a situation that you're going to worry about. But if it's a situation where you're charging them for 10 hours a month worth of work and they're expecting 50 hours a month worth of work out of you.
Yeah. Or even 15, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, that's a great point, because if a bunch of small clients that you're, working, that way, that adds up, right?
It does. It does. I would point out, in addition to a written agreement, maybe some people are uncomfortable with that. But, a simple onboarding kind of document might be extremely helpful. And nowadays we could even use AI to sort of set parameters, maybe help set boundaries. So written agreements. What else? What are other kinds of things that we can do to set expectations, I guess?
So just to drill on that a little bit deeper, I mean, a written agreement doesn't necessarily have to be a formal contract. It can be a text message. It can be an email. But, one thing that I've always done throughout my career is when I have a phone conversation with somebody, I will follow it up with an email that says, hey, just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. You said these things. I said these things. This is what we agreed going forward. And that's not even necessarily, a documentation type situation as much as it is just simply clarity of communication, because you and I can have a conversation on the phone and not necessarily have been on the same page. So if you send up a quick email that just says, this is what we talked about, then it gives the person the opportunity to say, well, wait, that's not what we talked about. Yeah. And it gives you the opportunity to clarify.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's also probably less confrontational and gives that person an opportunity to push back in case something wasn't entirely clear. So giving some follow-up maybe to clarify. So let's see, what else is there? What are other ways that we can enhance? What is a good way to put this? We've got a client, maybe they're asking a lot of questions. They're curious, but maybe they're not reading the information that you've provided, or maybe they're not taking the time out to really digest the product that they purchased, or the good that they purchased. Is there anything else that we can do to help structure this relationship?
So that's a great point that you bring up there. That, I would say, probably applies more to a situation like, where you've been involved in, where you're selling a product to somebody. And I think that what you can do in many instances there is create like an FAQ document or page on your website, because a lot of times people are going to have the same questions, right? And maybe times these aren't even folks that are necessarily problem clients. It's just that there's a common recurring theme that they have questions about. So if you create a document that says, these are the things that you need to know. If you encounter these problems, this is the solution for them, and you've got it pre-prepared, then you can send that out to people initially, and that'll probably resolve 90% of the issues that you might have, right?
Yeah.
So again, and it goes back to communication, right? So that's a really simple way that you can address people's problems or concerns or questions.
Okay, so we've spoken about some of the things that maybe techniques or some of the tools we can use. What I think that probably something that our listeners might also be interested in is considering explaining clearly the format of their seeking your help. Like, should they do it by email? Should they call you on the telephone? Should you have a meeting? What about nighttime? What about the weekend? These things are probably gray areas where people feel a bit trepidation. If I reject this person, are they going to think I'm a bad person? And maybe that is something that you need to establish in the beginning clearly to achieve the right balance. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with that. And, it's all in the matter of the way you present and phrase things towards people. So, managing meeting times is a great example of this. Managing your working hours is a great example of this. So if you've got a client, and I would establish this again early. Say if you're available between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock, say our working hours are 9 to 5 Eastern time. As far as communications goes and response and timeliness of response, just up front say, we will respond to everything that you say, within the same working day. We don't generally work on the weekends. So tell people what you do rather than tell people what you don't do. So, I would not send an email to somebody saying, I'm not going to answer your call after 5 o'clock. But if you say our working hours are between 9 and 5, then that creates the scenario that's when I'm available. If you tell people that I'll respond to you by the end of the day, then they're not going to get upset with you. They shouldn't get upset with you if you don't respond to them within 15 minutes of when they send an email. Clearly defining meeting times. So I think we've probably all been in meetings with folks that, the meeting's scheduled for an hour and they like to stretch it on to an hour and a half and 2 hours. So you just tell them in advance, I'm available between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Say I'm not available after 10. You don't have to, say I've got another meeting or anything. Just say I'm not available after 11 o'clock. So that clearly defines what the beginning and the end times are.
No doubt.
And you've got to enforce these boundaries too. If somebody, emails you after it's at 8 o'clock at night, say our working times are, between 9 and 5. If it's an emergency, that's a situation where you could possibly may make an exception. But if it's not, then you shouldn't.
I think that kind of the message that we're focusing on here is probably probably clarity and certainty, like you said. Tell them what you're doing, not what you're not doing. Lack of, I think that the ambiguity and the vagueness is probably something that causes a small business owner or an entrepreneur to fall into these problem areas with needy customers or needy clients is being vague, ambiguous, not being clear from the step one. So I think that probably boils down to, if enhancing effective communication, right, Mark? What could our listeners do to ensure, clear communication?
So clear and concise communication is extremely important. So you don't want to use, jargon. You want to use clear terms that everybody understands. And you want to keep it, to the point, right?
Yes.
I mean, don't say in 50 words what you could say in 5.
Right.
That reduces confusion. So be clear, speak in everyday terms, get to the point. Don't, beat around the bush. Say what it is that you mean and be clear about it, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I would probably add to that, it's easy enough to think, oh, I need to be clear and need to speak directly, but you also need to be proactive. You need to take that step first. You need to establish, again, the boundaries. You need to establish the environment, the ecosystem that your relationship is going to be governed by, or to go on under. So yeah, being active, I'd say, seeking your customer out and telling them is probably going to solve more than most problems. Is just being active, reaching out to them. I'd say, in my experience, no customer, no client enjoys being ignored. They probably, historically speaking, some of the biggest fallouts between service and providers would be that they didn't pay enough attention. So that's a big one for me. Proactive, reaching out on your own to establish whatever it is with that customer is critical. What do you think, Mark? Are there any other things that you would suggest people do or use?
I mean, the proactive communication is a great suggestion. So and I think it's a double-edged sword too. So not only does it help you manage the communications and set boundaries and express what the expectations are between you and your client, it also helps from a customer service standpoint, because it lets them know that you care. It lets them know that you're thinking about them. It lets them understand what the rules are of the engagement between the two of you. And I think that's extremely important in any situation in life, is having a clear understanding of what the rules of engagement are, right? And so the way you do that is through proactive communications. And, I would tell you that moving, a little bit further on to the next part of that, I think, is kind of what I hit upon a minute ago. Tell them the things that you will do. Tell them the things that, you're going to do. Use positive language. Don't say what I won't do. Say what I will do. And then, most people are going to be able to extrapolate from that. Sure. If I tell you what I'm going to do, then it's pretty known that if I don't tell you that, then that's what I won't do. So if you use positive language, it sets a positive tone for the engagement. It lets them know the rules. It's a great way to provide customer service and to establish boundaries at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that a part of that is setting and managing the client's expectations through positive language, through proactivity, through clarity and conciseness. But you also have to make sure you leave room for active listening. You've got to understand your customer. You need to put yourself in their shoes. You need to know that they're getting a solution, some kind of solution from you. So it will behoove you to understand why, what is their pain point, or what is their goal, what is their desire. And I think that is also understanding. So proactively communicating, but also gathering the information. And maybe part of that is keeping a file, recording, which will help you probably overall, because it becomes part of the big picture. Okay, you understand client A has this issue, client B has that issue. So it really helps you kind of structure your business. Do you think, what else do you think? Is there anything else that goes along with enhancing communication?
I think the active listening is a great point. It helps not only to make the customer feel like they've been heard and like you understand what their situation is, but it also helps you to understand better, right? Because one of the active listening techniques is you repeat to somebody what you heard them say, and so when you do that, if that's not what they said,
that's positive language.
Yeah. I mean, if you do that and that's not what they said, then it gives them an opportunity to correct you, right?
Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. So it's an etiquette, a style.
It's an etiquette and a style, and it's customer service, and it goes right along with setting and managing expectations. Whenever I start to work on a project for somebody, I always try to tell them, I will have this completed by Friday. And
okay. So
if something
proactive, proactive
communication, again, I mean, I cannot hit on this enough. I run into this a lot with people. I'll tell you that it's not going to be done on Friday, and if for whatever reason it didn't happen, it'll just be radio silence. And I think from somebody who's receiving service, there's nothing more frustrating to me than that. If I tell you it's going to be done on Friday, then if it's not going to be, I'm going to call you up on Thursday, or I'm going to send you an email and say, hey, I got this thing dumped on me and I'm not going to be able to, work on your project, but I will have it done Monday. So get out in front of it and say, it's all about the communication, right? Just communicate to people. And think about it in terms of how you would want to be, communicated with. If you're expecting something from somebody on Friday and you hear nothing and Friday comes around, you're pissed, right? So,
yeah.
But if they'd said it'll be done on, I'm going to work on the weekend on it and I'll have it to you first thing on Monday, you'd be like, okay, that's fine, because, shit happens.
Yeah. And, so this is kind of creating a level of comfort, or, just again, clarity. And so this may be something that's kind of uncomfortable for people, or a challenge. It may be kind of inconvenient to do this for some people. Small business people come in all shapes and sizes, right, Mark? So there's no, it may be easier for us to do something, but another person might find it quite difficult. So that brings us to, I think what's probably a very often overlooked aspect of client management, and that's the emotional and mental impact on business owners. Dealing with demanding clients can be draining, Mark. How do you see this affecting business owners?
It can absolutely be draining. And it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on you emotionally and mentally. It's, it causes stress. I mean, if you're spending, a bunch of hours every week dealing with needy clients, it's going to affect the way you perform for all of your clients, because you're sitting here worried about what this person is going to think, so you might rush through one project and, make mistakes on it. So this is very, very important from, dealing with these situations, because it can truly have a bad impact on the business. It can make you, it can make you work additional hours. It can cause, you to stay up at night thinking about this stuff, and that affects your overall business poorly. And so, plus it's going to make you unhappy with your job, right? I mean, if you're spending a bunch of time dealing with, people that are pissed off and people that are needy, it's going to make it unpleasant for you. And, I think we all know that if you're doing something that you're not enjoying, it decreases your productivity.
Indeed. Yeah. And then in turn could impact your personal morale and also your personal life. Taking stress back to your partner or, around even your coworkers or family members. It can be a challenge. I know from my own experience, it has been, maddening at times to deal with specific customers. So it's just imperative from the standpoint of a small business owner to set those boundaries, to be proactive, to be clear. And so written onboarding, written agreements, FAQs. These are so essential. So this will also help people manage their emotions and manage their stress. If you have a sequence of steps that your client understands clearly, then that's just going to make everything that much easier, right?
That's well said.
Yeah,
that's very, very, very well said.
Yeah,
it's it's going to, it can lead to bad decision making. I mean, if you're stressed out, if you're not sleeping well, it can make you, make poor decisions. It can affect your personal life. I mean, if you're dealing with a bunch of crap every day and you come home and, the wife says something that annoys you and you blow up on her, that's not a good thing, right? So, and it can make it so that you have bad relationships with your other clients. If you've got, the bad clients are stressing you out and a good client, asks you for something that, might seem unreasonable, once in every blue moon, you might get angry at that person because of all the crap that you're dragging with you because you're dealing with a bad client.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I know from personal experience. So, with that said, I think that it's important for us to quickly touch on how we can leverage technology and technology tools to help us manage our relationships with our customers. We talked about written agreements, whether or not they're contracts. We talked about emails, FAQs. We talked about having a concrete written structure for how we do things, no matter what you're doing, will definitely lead to less stress, greater clarity, and probably overall more success overall. So I'd like to share, using a customer relationship management tool and interface. There are many of them. They come in all kinds of shapes and forms these days, but it couldn't be more critical than to take notes. We're always talking about budgeting, being an active budgeter. We're talking about scheduling. We're talking about having a plan. This is the things that we do a lot here on our podcast, on our program here. And a CRM is something that can be super useful to a small business owner. It's probably one of the more popular or well-known ones is HubSpot. HubSpot is a big company with a lot of functions. So it can be a big undertaking, but it can be broken down into sections. And one section would be the CRM element, and that is keeping track of your customers, jotting down information about them, keeping a record of their of the communications that you have with them. So knowing more about them, and so this goes along with clear communication and proactivity. Having a system that allows you to quickly access and easily understand your customers. So this kind of tool is invaluable for managing high maintenance clients efficiently. What else do you think, Mark? Do you have any other specific experience with that kind of thing? How do you sort of follow your clients in your work?
So a CRM is a great example of using technology to help you manage that. And what a CRM stands for is customer relationship management. And so, I mean, the name kind of says it all, right? It helps you to manage those relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, from my experience, it's a little bit different from your experience because, we are a service business. And so we have a lot of, communication and engagement with our clients.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't have the need for a CRM as much because our engagements and our interactions are generally a little bit more in depth. But I would tell you that it works great for a business like you have been involved in, where you're selling somebody a product, right? Because if you've got thousands of customers that you have a limited engagement with, you're going to be more likely to, not necessarily remember,
skip over them,
that you sold a diffuser to in 2011. But if you've got notes in there that says Susie calls up every 6 months and wants you to replace the, thing that she broke, then you're going to be in a much better position to be able to manage that relationship.
Yeah. So this, I think, probably is a good segue to maybe the final element, and that is building that strong relationship. So I know Susie, I know what she's purchased, I know her likes and dislikes, I know when her birthday is, I know maybe the name of her partner, her kids are off at college, this kind of thing. Personal attention to detail is something that I think, in addition to proactivity and clarity of communication, is also essential. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you. And so, much like one of the earlier topics, this not only helps to deal with unhappy customers, but it makes all of the customers feel like they're, being more well cared for. If you put this information in a CRM and you remember, Susie's, kids are off in college and you mention that, then they're going to feel more loved and more special.
Yeah.
And that's going to give them a better experience. I mean,
right.
So I absolutely agree with that. And then, positive reinforcement is a big part of this. When somebody does something, I mean, this is just part of human nature, right? So when a client behaves in a way that you would want them to, you want to point that out to them. I appreciate that you didn't email me over the weekend. I had my kid's baseball game to go to, right?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. They like that. They like they like to be to be loved, to be appreciated. I think that is kind of tuning into a basic human need. And so that's going to be helpful if you can add that into your client relationship management. It also, you have to realize, though, that you can't win every battle, right? You do need to know, when it's a lost cause, when you should let go, right? Right, Mark? There's going to be times when you can't win, you can't achieve that result that you really want. And so I think that's also important for a small business person to realize, is that it's okay. And there is a time when you might need to pass. Have you had this kind of experience?
I have had this kind of experience, and it's very challenging as a business owner, and it's even more challenging when you're first starting out, because you're absolutely right. There are clients that, no matter how clearly you manage them, no matter how clearly you set boundaries and communicate expectations, they're a lost cause, to your point. And you're never going to make money on them, and you're just going to cause yourself a tremendous amount of headache and heartache dealing with them, trying to make somebody happy that you're never going to make happy. And so it's very important that you put yourself in a situation where you understand that not every client is good. And sometimes you have to sever the relationship. And it sucks, especially when you're starting out and you don't have very many clients.
Yeah.
But it's important to come to that personal revelation, and it's contrary to what we think that we should do, right? Because we all
I think that's
when
the
we
challenge.
start a business, we think that we should take care of everybody, right?
Yes.
And you should take care of everybody, but there are some
That's
people
what we
who
were
are never ever going to be happy.
Yes.
And so when you come to the conclusion that there are going to be people that you're never going to make happy, that's the first part of this. Then it makes it a whole lot easier to be able to identify the clients that that you do have to sever the relationship with.
Absolutely.
So once you know,
it's a learning process.
it is a learning process, but this is like one of these things that you've got to come over that mental block, and you've got to say, there are some clients I'll never make happy. Once you have come to that internal, realization, then it allows you to put some, put a box around this and say, okay, now that I know that I can fire a client, this is how I decide which ones to do it to. And it shouldn't happen often, but it should absolutely happen.
Yes.
If you've never fired a client, you are doing your business the wrong way.
Okay, that's a good point. But I would hasten to add that when you do such a thing, it's critical to do it positively and professionally. And again, potentially having a sequence for it or a structure for it so that it's clear. Again, it's clear. And so there's no mixed emotion or mixed feelings or hard feelings. I think that's a really important point. What do you think?
That's a really great point. And it's tough because, we talked about earlier the emotional impact that it has on you as a human being when you're dealing with this sort of thing. It's very, very important that you remain objective through this process. So once you've decided that a client relationship needs to stop, you need to take the emotion out of it. And what I would do, to your point, is I would create a procedure that you go through internally, that you probably should write it down and say, this is the way I get rid of a client that's not profitable for me and that is, sucking my soul out. So keep it positive, keep it objective. I would say, the way I've done this in the past when I've had to fire clients is, I've gone to them and I've said, I don't believe that we are meeting your expectations. And so I think that it's best that we stop this engagement and, give them options and help them to transfer, to a new service provider. If you're providing them a service, if you're selling them a product, refund their money. But basically it's a situation where if you get emotional, you're going to say things that you don't want to say. You're going to make the situation even worse, and you're going to make the parting a lot more messy than it needs to be. So be positive, be objective, and do it quickly, right?
Yeah. Fail fast, but maybe is one way to put it. But regardless, have a procedure, make it definitive, all above board and calm, but it should absolutely happen. So there's no need to doubt yourself or feel regret at all. So that's one really strong point I would like to emphasize to all our listeners. It's a big letdown to not meet people's expectations or not make them completely happy or not be able to achieve whatever goal that you have. But this is also normal. And so it's imperative that an entrepreneur can accept that and then be able to move on. So, Mark, this was actually a really nice talk, and I actually enjoyed this. We could go into much greater depth, actually, with all of the different sort of stories and experiences we have in our past. But, we know managing a needy and an entitled client effectively is crucial, not just for your business's efficiency, but also for your own personal well-being too. With that said, Mark, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone?
I think we've had a good conversation here as well. And, I guess just kind of summing up what you said, there's unfortunately always going to be people that aren't happy with what it is that you're doing. No matter what level of service you're providing, there's going to be somebody that's not happy. And it sucks, but it's part of life. And if you just recognize in business that that's going to happen, you're going to put yourself in a much better spot if you have a plan in place to deal with them when it does.
No doubt about it. And the sooner you're able to assimilate that and to accept that, the better for you, better for your business and for your peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time on our SmartBiz Advisors podcast for more insights into managing your business smartly and efficiently. Until then, guys, keep thriving. We appreciate everyone. Have a great day. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, John.